Hey everyone, Rich Bennett here. I'm excited to tell you about something we're doing for National Recovery Month. Here at Conversations with Rich Bennett, we're holding a special event called the Podathon for Recovery, 12 Days of Hope. For 12 consecutive days, we'll release a new episode dedicated to powerful conversations about addiction, recovery, and hope. And we're doing this to raise vital funds for an incredible nonprofit, Rage Against Addiction. They are on the front lines providing sober living homes, recovery coaching, and essential support to families. We believe recovery is a journey worth celebrating, and your support can make a tangible difference. Every donation, no matter the size, goes directly to them, helping to save lives and provide a second chance. So please join our mission. You can start donating right now. Simply go to conversationswithrichbennett.com and you'll see the donation thing right there so you can donate and help these women in recovery. Welcome to a special episode of Conversations with Rich Bennett. This is a part of our Podathon for Recovery, 12 Days of Hope, our mission to raise money for Rage Against Addiction. My co-host Wendy Beck and I will be sharing powerful stories of addiction, recovery, and resilience to help break the stigma and show that hope is always possible. Your support helps Rage Against Addiction provide life-changing resources, and you can donate right now by visiting our GoFundMe link in the show notes. We are so grateful you've joined us on this important journey. Now let's get into today's conversation. Wendy and I have a young lady on who, of course, like all the other episodes, is in recovery. We have Elizabeth Kipp on. I guess I should have asked you beforehand. Do you go by Elizabeth or Beth?
Oh, I go by Elizabeth.
Or Liz?
Yeah. Well, my mother called me Liz, but I go by Elizabeth. Oh, I'll go by Liz.
Okay.
Liz or Lizzie, but Elizabeth. But if somebody says Beth, I don't even know. I just don't even recognize that. I just no.
Right.
It's funny. I don't recognize the back end in the name, but I recognize the front end. Isn't that interesting? It's just the way it is. Yeah. Elizabeth.
I answer to anything. All right. So Elizabeth, I always like to kick it off because Wendy tells me to.
That's right.
But so we'll get into the recovery part, but the addiction part, because your addiction is a little bit different than some others. When did the addiction start and what was the addiction?
Well, ultimately, the addiction was to chronic pain, to a stress habit, ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
But I had an injury when I kind of grew up in a dysfunctional family. So that was really what started that stress pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had an accident when I was 14 and I broke the fifth lumbar in my spine, and the bone broke front to back. So it pulled the leg nerves with it. And I was already so used to a stress pattern that when I actually was able to walk away from that accident, and it didn't register. It registered as pain, but it didn't register as I freaking broke a bone. It was just like, it didn't register at that level. And I didn't know until 7 years later when I had difficulty walking upstairs and saw a doctor, and he took an x-ray and said, "You got an old injury." And I was like, "Oh, I know what that was." Right. So,
wow. Yeah.
So I went 14 years between that accident and surgery without it, but there was just a lot of pain there. Yeah. And finally I had surgery, but it took 4 surgeries to stabilize that slip. And they, there's hardware in there, which is it's really, really miraculous. And I had, when I at that time, 14, it was a bit like probably 1982 was when I had my first surgery. And they started me on opiates then, opiates and benzodiazepines. Oof. Because I was in so much pain, and I had such a reaction to the pain. That's why they added the benzodiazepines. But I was anyway. It was a lot of surgeries, and every time I had surgery, the pain got worse, and the dose went up, of course. And I ended up on on prescription opiates and benzodiazepines for 31 years. The last 15 years of those was
Wow.
fentanyl and Ativan. And so I really am truly, and it wasn't just a little dose, it was this massive dose. So I'm really truly a miracle. We're all miracles, but it's quite unusual.
Right.
Right. Anyway, so I got to a point where I was so sick, and I realized that the pain medicine was causing a lot of trouble. I didn't really understand it at the time, but I understood. Mm-hmm. I didn't understand all the details, but I understood it was causing difficulty. So I went to my prescribing doctor and said, let's get off this. And he said, well, we'll put you in a coma. And I was like, well, how many patients have you done that with? And he said, none. And I'm like, I'm not going to be your guinea pig. So I was like, that's not okay. So
to go through a detox in a coma, is that what it was?
Well,
if you don't mind
that
me
was
asking,
that was his plan, and I didn't anyway. I didn't go for that. However, I located a doctor at the Betty Ford Center who had a pain management program, who had taken many patients off this cocktail of an opiate and benzo, and he knew about fentanyl. So, and at that point, it was like, I was at that bottom we talk about. I just didn't have anywhere else to go. I couldn't get off. I got about 3/4 of the way down off my highest dose, and I just couldn't get any further. And so anyway, I went to the Betty Ford Center into this pain management program with Dr. Peter Prescott back in 2013. And Dr. Prescott passed away in 2016, but he had this amazing program. And there were a lot of us. There were 20 of us when I was there in the program, 20 of us in the program. 100 patients on campus, 20 of us were in pain track. The other 80 were straight up, went to relapse school in the afternoon. 20 of us went to pain track. And so what was interesting about that program was I survived the detox, which was about 10 days in a chemical dependency hospital part of the Betty Ford Center. They have a little place where they put people when they're doing that. And then this was the thing. So I had all that pain, 40 years of chronic pain, and I remember getting well enough to get out of the bed, right? But I was so weak from 10 days in a detoxing in the bed. You're just going to be weak. And so I had just enough strength to stand up and get in the wheelchair that they had for me, and I noticed something. I noticed that I didn't have any pain in my back. Like, it was shocking because I was gone.
Oh, wow.
I was like, what the heck is this? And it was great. And I had a lot of pain in my gut. But the pain in my back was, which had haunted me for so long, was gone. And at the end of it, I was in that program for 52 days, including that 10 days of detox. And I walked out of there. I walked in with 40 years of chronic pain, and I walked out of there 52 days later with no pain. Astonishing.
Wow.
And
you said that you had pain in your stomach.
Was
that from the pills?
Oh, yeah, that was from the opiates. Sure. Yeah. Right? So opiates.
Okay.
Yeah, opiates, just for, kind of general education. Opiates do not heal chronic pain. There's no evidence that shows that.
Yeah.
They'll help us deal with the stress of a traumatic injury, but they don't heal chronic pain. But what they do is they repress the breath. So now we're not getting, releasing toxins out of the lung, and we're not getting fresh oxygen back in. It dehydrates us, so now we're not getting fluids that the cells need just to function properly, and it represses and it paralyzes the gut. So now whatever food you're eating isn't getting digested. And anybody you talk to that's been on opiates will tell you that they had a rip-roaring case of constipation, right? And now none of those things are healing, right? Opiates are really, really useful when I had a kidney stone. I had a 4 millimeter kidney stone, which took me to my knees. And that was very, very helpful to have a shot of Dilaudid in the hospital. That's all I needed. But I was so charged up and shook up from that level of pain that there's no resting there. And so if you've got so much trauma that you can't calm down, opiates are useful. But they're not, opiates are not a chronic pain solution. Chronic pain changes the brain fundamentally. It changes the brain. It creates chaos. It messes with the emotional center. So now we've got super negative mind and we're very reactive. Our stress response is out of balance. It's in the on position and never goes into the off position. So we're hypervigilant. Opiates don't address any of those problems.
Right.
But my doctors, the only doctor that understood that was Peter Prescott, was Dr. Prescott. So all the doctors that I went to up until when I met Peter they said, you can't heal from chronic pain. Here are your opiates and benzos. This is the best quality of life that you can have. And I'm going to just talk for just another moment to get this point across. I was very fortunate to have been trained as a research scientist. And so I knew when they said that you can't heal from chronic pain, I knew that they had forgotten their basic science. Western science operates in a scientific framework. Scientific framework is about probabilities, not facts. And so I knew that these doctors were making an error, and that they had forgotten the framework that they were working into and the limitations of it and their orientation in it. And that they were telling me more about the limitation of the bodies, of their model, than they were telling me about the body's ability to heal. Because science can only comment on that which it can observe, measure, and describe. But where do we live? We live in the all that is. Not just the part that science can observe, measure, and describe. It only speaks to that little piece of it. But we live in the all that is, so we heal in the all that is. And I knew that they were working with a limited model and that I was going to have to reference the all that is in order to find my healing. And when I met Dr. Prescott, he understood that. He was a holistic healer. He was a Qigong healer. He brought in all this stuff. So it was, he was Western trained, but he also was accessing a larger part of the spectrum.
So this blows me away, though. That whole time with the pain, the doctors were still prescribing this stuff to you.
Yeah, that was their answer. Well, okay. Now let's understand something here. I think it's really important because I hear your oh my God kind of thing, and I understand that. And their training, the doctors that I was working with, seriously, their training was limited, and they weren't. Dr. Prescott had a whole bunch of different, he was board certified in a whole bunch of different things, and he really understood the nature of chronic pain. I was dealing with I was dealing with a PharmD, and I was dealing with orthopedic doctors. They're not trained in chronic pain. They didn't even understand neuroplasticity until the 90s, and this all started for me in the early 80s.
Right. Can I ask a question? You said that you were addicted to the opioids and the benzos and fentanyl. Was the fentanyl something that was prescribed, or was that a street drug?
It was all prescribed. It was all prescribed. Yep.
Wow. I never heard of that. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
That I
Fentanyl is
wouldn't.
is used as a prescription. Yeah, sure. It's used. I had a, I had. Oh, there's another story. I had a. So I got clean in 2013, and then in oh, I don't know, maybe 6 years later, I had a compression fracture in my spine, and it was right at the lung level. It was quite painful. And I went to my doctor, and we took an X-ray, and he said, "Yeah, you got a fracture here, and a compression fracture." And he
God.
said, "Well, we can give you a because he knew I was in recovery, and he said, well, we can give you a kyphoplasty, and that'll stabilize the bone. And a kyphoplasty is when they inject like a human superglue into the break areas, and it solidifies the break so that it keeps it stable." And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds great." So he said it'll help with the pain, and I said, "That sounds great." So here's what happened. So that was all the information that I had, and I went into pre-op that morning, just before the procedure, and the nurse comes in and says, "We're going to give you Versed and fentanyl." And I'm like, "What?" And Versed is a benzo. And I was like, "What? I'm in recovery from that stuff." And he said, "Well, we don't have to give it to you." And I was like, "Hang on. If you're going to put me through a procedure where I need fentanyl and Versed to get through it, give it to me. Just don't give me any after." Right. And I thought to myself, "Oh man, I am walking right back into the fire of the dragon." And I didn't know whether I was going to make it out without being like all charged up and messed up again and back in that frequency of addiction. And I just surrendered. I just surrendered into my higher power. Like I had nowhere else to go anyway. And I just stayed as present as I could and just allowed the process. And I had to ask for fentanyl and Versed 3 times during that procedure just to get through it. And I got through it. And I never felt even remotely high. It just took care of like me being able to sit still, to lie still long enough for them to put all that stuff in my back. And I just don't like needles in my back. Oh my God, I hate that so much, and I've had so many of them. So it was really creepy. Anyway, I got done with the procedure, and you know what happened? No cravings. It was astonishing to me.
No cravings?
No cravings. No cravings. It was just like, I was just like, we talk about this in recovery where the burden, the craving thing is lifted, and it literally, the obsession, it literally was, it wasn't even in my field. I just felt like I feel like grace just chased me, has been chasing me my whole life. It's just been extraordinary.
The one thing I don't understand, and especially with doctors, and you mentioned it with the chronic pain, all the prescriptions they're giving you, and you said it's not going to heal you. It's just masking the pain. But the one thing I don't understand throughout all the years and the technology we've had that has come along, they can burn nerves and everything, and the pain is in the nerves. I'm surprised they haven't figured out a way to somehow or another just pause those nerves. Especially when you went back for that other surgery, how they could pause those nerves so you wouldn't feel the pain.
You got a misunderstanding happening there.
Okay. What's that?
So sometimes in some situations, nerve blocks are appropriate. However,
okay,
this is a brain processing situation. Chronic pain is a brain processing thing. It's that part of the body. So I want you to understand something here, which I find amazing, and Dr. Prescott understood this fundamentally. If you had 3 people with X-rays that look just like mine, and you're only referencing the X-ray, You're just looking at the break in the back and, oh, the problem's there, because that's where the pain's coming from. If you're only looking at
Right.
that injury, and you've got these 3 patients, one patient will have pain all the time. Another patient will have pain only when they're stressed. And the other patient won't have any pain at all. How do you explain that just by looking at the x-ray? You can't.
I don't think.
You can't. So you can't approach chronic pain as a reductionist. You can't, from a reductionist point of view. It's a whole full body situation. It's a mind, body, spirit deal. I wrote a whole book on it. And Peter wrote a book too. Dr. Prescott wrote a book called Conquer Chronic Pain, an Innovative Mind-Body Approach. I wrote a kind of a follow-up to that. It's The Way Through Chronic Pain, Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power. And it's kind of the patient manual. It's like, these are the tools I use. This is what it was. This is the voice of a chronic pain patient. This is what's going on in the mind of a chronic pain sufferer. And this is how I got through it. So it's more than just the back issue. There's a whole situation going on, which is another problem why Western medicine is amazing at trauma. At a car accident, or somebody broke their leg, or whatever the thing is, they're great at that. They're really not, at this time, they're really not well-oriented to chronic conditions, because their approach is this reductionist approach. And a chronic situation is going to be mind, body, spirit. Really need to bring an integrated approach, and we're just at the baby part of that. And I happen to just kind of fall into Dr. Prescott's world. He was only at the Betty Ford Center for 3 years. I'm telling you, I'm just like, wow, so lucky. I'm so lucky in so many ways. Yeah.
All those years of you dealing with the chronic pain and basically the addiction and everything, how did it affect your work?
Oh, yes, that's a good question. So I was a pretty high functioning addict in many ways. Like, I paid all bills in the house. I made sure that I didn't actually, I had to not work. I had to stop work. I was a research scientist, and I was going on to study. I was a remote sensing specialist, and I was studying, that's like how the satellites look down at the land, and I was a plant biologist, so I was kind of like, this is how we do this work. So I was a plant biologist, and also ecosystems, and these are how these things work together and stuff like that. And I that career just got like torpedoed with this back thing. It was just like, I guess I'm not moving in that direction. And so I really was laid up in the 80s. I was laid up for 6 years. I literally was in bed for 6 years. And so,
oh my God.
Yeah. So that was it was a lot of surgery and a lot of layup time and a lot of pain and I have to say, I had a meditation practice from maybe like the mid 70s. So I knew something about the present moment and staying in it and the value of the now. And I didn't really, I know how to leverage meditation big time now. But, when you're on drugs, when you're on drugs, that kind of creates a veil. Big time, like a kind of a thick veil. I still was able to leverage the power of meditation to kind of get me from one moment to the next. I just didn't. It just was hard. So there's a lot of suffering, and also there's a lot of negative mind involved with chronic pain. So it creates a self-esteem issue. It creates a I don't even know if I can make it kind of issue. There's a lot of that happens. And there's a lot of chaos in the brain. So I got to the point, this is one of the things that happens in chronic pain, by the way, is the hippocampus. Remember I said we have this emotional regulation problem where we have a lot of negative mind?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we also have a memory issue. So that short-term memory gets pretty fried. And by the time my memory was so compromised by the time I went to the Betty Ford Center. I remember I could watch a movie at night, and I had enough memory capacity at that point to hold the plot of the movie over 2 hours. But the next morning, like 8 hours later, I could watch that movie again, and it could be brand new. So my memory was really, really compromised. And what's amazing is I rebuilt that. I got back to like a completely normal memory. I've got a memory that's like, I can't believe the stuff I remember. It's kind of like that. So we can heal from this stuff. We just have to, do what we need to do to heal.
So can we talk about your recovery process? Not just the detox, but like after the detox. Talk to us about, let's encourage those that are struggling or have a loved one that's struggling, like the path that you took and that has left you to the sustainable recovery that you have today.
Yeah. So thank you. It was a great question. So I had so many people hold me and guide me. It's just been quite remarkable. And one of the things that I had coming straight out of treatment was something called Recovery 2.0 with Tommy Rosen. And at that time, Tommy was just getting started. At that time, like he had his first online conference while I was in treatment. That's October of 2013. But he had a DVD at the time that had a Kundalini Yoga spinal energy series, Kriya, just a series of movements that I started with as soon as as I said, my pain went away. So I was able to actually use my body. And I used to be an athlete, so this was like amazing. And I started with Kundalini Yoga, which spinal flexing, are you kidding? I could barely breathe before I went into treatment. Now I'm not only breathing fully, but I'm flexing my spine and it's just like amazing. Anyway, so I went into this yoga practice and it's kind of vigorous and I had to be very conscious of kind of not having it feed into my chronic stress pattern. Because when I came into I got clear of the medication. I cleared that out of my system, but I still had the fallout of it in my system. And I still had the chronic stress pattern that I started with, that I had as a kid. I still had that chronic stress pattern running in my system. And so that was what I was working on in my recovery. It was like, can I please just freaking unwind and just take a breath? And can I just chill out a little? Instead, just pull the pedal up a little, So my recovery has been to really unwind the tension pattern and to unwind the negative thinking pattern that went with it. So
Right.
And the way I have done that is I went right into 12-step here in Narcotics Anonymous, and which was just amazing. I went into got a sponsor, went into the 12-step process. And then along with that, I went into yoga and Tommy's since kind of his vision has grown and now Recovery 2.0 is its own platform and we have meetings there and I lead meetings. I facilitate meetings there. And I'm a Recovery 2.0 coach. So I went on to coach training. But the thing is, I never would have done any of that coach training thing until I felt stable in my own
Mm-hmm.
recovery. And how did I find stability in my own recovery? I sat in recovery rooms, in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, sometimes sometimes in Alcoholics Anonymous, and listened. And I listened very carefully. And sometimes I'm just like, how does that even work? I was so confused by some of the stuff. And other stuff, it was just like, oh my God, I'm never going to forget what he just said. And so I listened. And I also learned early to take what resonates and leave the rest. So if I'm hearing stuff and it's not landing, or I'm like, I don't even know what that is, or that doesn't make sense, don't bother with that. Stay with what's working, right? Stay with what's working and work your program. Another thing was like, I learned to work the program that works for me and not worry about what other people were doing. I could listen to them as guides for what worked for them and see if it fit, you know? So Narcotics Anonymous has been amazing. Just 12 steps, the 12 steps themselves have been amazing. And then Recovery 2.0 has been amazing. And then the other element has been, that yoga piece, that's what Tommy does. He brings in yoga, and there's chanting and breath work, and like we're doing all 8 limbs of yoga, full on, right? And I also, while I was in Dr. Prescott's program, there was a gentleman there named John Newton, who was a wellness practitioner at the time and brought in a modality called ancestral clearing, which scientists here, I don't know anything about. Like he presented this as a thing, and I was just like, what is this? And what I noticed was it's a very interesting practice because it's a prayer practice. But at the time, I had only heard research about the power of prayer. I really didn't understand the power. I had never embodied the power of prayer.
Right.
And this is a prayer practice, and I experienced the power of it while I was in treatment. And I was just like, oh my God, what is happening here? I felt the pain in my own body shift, and the whole room was shifting, and everybody's reporting this reduction in pain. I'm like, oh my God, what's happening here? Can you measure this? Is it repeatable? And does he teach it? I went right into research mode with this thing. And I took the first training, ancestral clearing practitioner training that I could as soon as I got out of treatment. And that was in May of 2014. I took that training, and I've been an ancestral clearing practitioner ever since. I did that before I learned recovery coaching. So I'm just saying, like, what order it was in, that I dropped right into ancestral clearing and the prayer practice as part of that was an adjunct to my 12-step and my yoga. And those things were the things that got me so grounded. I thought, gee, you know what? I think I could probably be a recovery coach. I think I'm stable enough to be able to be a guide for other people now.
Well, I think that what you're saying is what we're noticing, and your recovery path, how long have you been in recovery?
2013. Yeah. So that's almost 12 years.
Yes. And in that time, we've evolved so much, and the things that you're talking about, outside of just abstinence and the 12-step program, we're finding these other wellness dimensions of wellness that are taking us to a different level, like you said, the yoga and the meditation and the prayer and the energy work. And I think that we're just, we're learning how to heal ourselves in different ways than we've ever been able to, track. I think.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so exciting because my parents both died at least proximally from alcoholism. And, when I look back on their lives and their trajectory, you know what? They didn't have the tools. They didn't know about Alcoholics Anonymous at the time, and they never thought it was a problem. Like they just didn't have the consciousness. We just We are just
Mm-hmm.
seriously standing on the shoulders of giants, like 100%. We're just so fortunate to have the tools.
One of the things I've noticed talking to a lot of people in recovery, and that's because when you said Tommy Rosen, it's like the name rung a bell. And of course, after listening to you now, I know why. But I hear a lot of people in recovery talking about yoga and meditating and how that helps with them, and of course, the power of prayer. But it's just amazing. And doing yoga and the meditating just makes you feel so much better. And not just people in recovery, but even for mental health as well.
100%. Yeah, it's interesting to me. Remember, serious stress pattern here, very heavily negative mind, and I've been going and practicing in the morning and doing this yoga practice, one kind of yoga practice or another, but kind of a fairly specific focus. And I will wake up in the morning, not so bad as I used to, but I still wake up with this heaviness. It used to be like the vultures were right there waiting for me. It was so negative, right? And this is so amazing. I would get on my mat and I would do 3 minutes of this chanting we call long ekongkars, which is really you're chanting for it's a 2.5 breath chant, and you're really you're cleaning out, you're doing some serious breath work, and in 3 minutes,
right,
the vultures are like there were vultures. it's like that. It's like
they turned into doves.
It's like this, and as a scientist, I'm noticing the pattern, and I'm going, what the heck is going on here? This is, what is this? And so I considered that from like my sciencey point of view. And I thought to myself, okay, this is an aspect. There's all kinds of things happening, but this is an aspect of what's happening. We shallow breathe all night. And most of the alveoli that are exchanging the gases are at the base of the lung. So we're building up overnight because we're shallow breathing. We're not getting to the base. We're building up toxins in the base of the lung, and the cells aren't getting oxygenated. And remember, mind, body, spirit. The mind reflects the body. And the emotions are reflecting it as well. And so I'm waking up and I'm like, oh my God, it's dark in this world, and it's because I've got toxins going on. There's no oxygen. And I sit down and clean the pipes, get the system going with the long, deep breath for 3 minutes, and we're off to the races. Like it's the difference between midnight and dawn. So that's an aspect of it. I mean, there's more going on there, but that's a kind of it's really an ad for long, deep breathing is what it is. We just add chanting.
Yeah.
Words that we do in long cars, or the words that we do, that vibrational frequency of those sounds are quite remarkable. So that's a whole other thing, but I won't take everybody there. I just wanted to talk about the breath part.
Breathing, people don't understand. Breathing exercise can make a big difference.
I don't understand.
When I started doing yoga, that's one of the first things he talks about is the breathing exercise. Of course, now I do that every day. I don't do the yoga every day anymore, but I need to get back to doing it every day. So now with your coaching and everything, do you do it virtual or are you strictly in person?
I've done both, but I mostly do.
Okay. So
yeah, mostly do virtual.
Mostly do what?
Mostly do virtual.
Virtual. Okay. So anybody in the world can contact you.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then something very important. Tell people how they can contact you.
Oh, you can find me.
Your website.
You can find me at my website, which is Elizabeth. You got to put a dash in between my first and last name. So Elizabeth-Kipp.com. And, you can book a free introductory session there. I do ancestral clearing, I do recovery coaching, and I do stress management. And that, I call myself really a stress management and historical trauma specialist. Really, people in recovery at this point, being fully alive and sober as I am, I really see when I walk in the rooms, I can kind of feel people, and I mostly see the ancestral burden that they're carrying. I mostly kind of sense that. And I can also sense like a stress pattern. And you know what else is interesting? And this is not a testament. This is not about me. This is about the practice. I will be sitting in a local, Narcotics Anonymous room, and somebody who's just come in from meth addiction walks in the room, and they look around and they come and sit right beside me. And they literally, this happened 3 times. And they turn to me and they say, I'm sitting next to you because you're in the peace zone.
Wow.
I know. Yeah.
You know what that's also called, Elizabeth? It's the law of attraction. The positivity that you're putting out, you're just bringing them right to you.
Well, it could be.
I believe that.
What I love about that also is that as dysregulated and challenged as a meth addict is coming in, they recognize that energy right away. That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
Right. So when we go to meetings, I mean, sometimes I need a meeting, and sometimes I go to the meeting just to be a witness, just to be of service, just to sit in a chair and just to claim a space. I don't have to say a word.
Yeah.
That's a service in itself.
So you've been in the recovery community for 23 years.
No.
And you have mentored
true.
And sponsored. And
not 23 years. No, not 20.
No?
I've been in for 12. Yeah. For 12.
12.
Since 2013.
In recovery.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
And you sponsor people?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what advice would you have to someone new in recovery when it's appropriate for them to, or not appropriate, but when do you feel like they're ready to sponsor people on their own?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think my son would have, it'd be interesting to hear what my son would have to say. I remember because he was in recovery before I was. I remember when I was in the rooms before I had worked all 12 steps with a sponsor. I'd worked them at the Betty Ford Center, but kind of quickly, but with a sponsor. At some point, somebody came up to me. I was on maybe step 3 with a sponsor. And somebody came up to me and said, would you be my sponsor? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that. And I said something to my son, and he said, well, you're 3 steps ahead of where they are. And which was an interesting point. However, yeah, right. So that, I mean, that's beautiful encouragement, right? Beautiful encouragement. And for me, I feel like let's work through the 12 steps, have our own spiritual awakening, understand what the steps are. And then once we've worked the 12 steps, then we can take somebody through. Yeah. That's right. That's the way I would do that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. We just always like to have different perspectives on that type of thing. We have our sober living houses and we have women in recovery. And I know sometimes we have alumni that have come, that we stay in touch with, and they become sponsors of the newer women in the houses. And I was just curious of what your perspective was on when the alumni would be, qualified or ready to have sponsees. So that's a good thing to take away from it, understanding the steps and have worked in them yourself. Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Sure.
So Elizabeth, I always love to ask people this, especially somebody that's in your field. Can you, with the recovery coach and everything, can you share a feel good story about somebody that you have helped that is in recovery themselves? Of course, you don't have to mention any names.
Sure. Yeah. I love the question. I had got a call from someone who had worked the steps and had been in recovery for some time. And one of the things about a yoga practice is that it will bring your stuff up. And fortunately, the yoga itself is this beautiful container, so that as your shadow comes up, you have the capacity to, let it process. So it's a beautiful, it's a beautiful experience. Anyway, she had this shadow that came up, and it was a little bit of a ghost, and it was kind of haunting her after the practice. And so she called me, and so we ran a step 4 or 5 right away. And this was something that this person had never shared on a 4 step. As many times as she'd been through, never shared on a 4 step. So much shame around it. And so, the weight of shame. Shame, I heard Tommy say this one time, Tommy Rosen say this one time, and I never forgot it because it was so true. Shame is a food of addiction. We need to shine a light on it wherever it is. And so this was a profound space to just kind of attune to her, what was happening with her, and just be a witness to her, like sharing her story around this thing. And then being able to mirror back, the compassion and the pointing her to the surrender and the forgiveness and that whole energy. And of course, I dropped in an ancestral clearing prayer right in the middle of all that, because some of that stuff, that shame she was carrying, came from the lineage, right? So we just brought that in as well. And you could hear it in her voice. You could see the shift in the energy, and she felt lighter, and she walked away from there a healed person. And really, all I did was say yes and listen and drop a prayer in, But
yeah,
she was willing. She brought her willingness, and she knew to reach out. And it just doesn't get any sweeter than that.
No. Elizabeth, is there anything you would like to add?
I would. My real, the thing that I'm the most sensitive to in terms of stability in my recovery is where are the weak points? Where are the relapse spots? So I'm very sensitive to like other people's stories around that, and I my science mind is incredibly curious about that. So I'm kind of like a dog with a bone with problems like that that just seem to be really quite mysterious. And I will share with you one thing I have discovered. one of the most important keys to relapse prevention, in my opinion,
Okay.
and the little bit of experience that I have in my own recovery, is let's stay in integrity with ourselves. As soon as I slip out of integrity, now I've taken a step towards relapse.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Elizabeth, I want to thank you so much. It's definitely been an honor and a privilege to talk to you. And thank you for helping those that are in recovery as well.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate your platform, and I'm just really excited about this offering you're giving everyone. We need to hear all these different messages. There are many paths, but they all lead to the freedom that we get in recovery.
Yes. Well, like I said, I wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't for Wendy. God, I do give her too much praise, don't I?
Stop. No, it's just that you're helping the organization, and we're just trying to provide awareness and support to anyone that struggles with drug and or alcohol abuse, including the families. And, our programs are rooted in sober living houses for women. So it's always really inspiring to hear women who have longevity. And we thank you for coming on. And, I'm really honored to meet you. And I would like to, if you don't mind, could you give us some more information about your book in case anybody that was listening would be interested in getting that?
Sure. It's The Way Through Chronic Pain, Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power. It's really, it's a book for chronic pain sufferers and those who care for them. Doctors, nurses, family members, and friends. And it offers proven techniques to clear pain and live a life free from suffering, from a former chronic pain sufferer, me, who searched the world for answers and found them. And of course, chronic pain is a form of addiction. So this is a book for chronic pain sufferers and for people that suffer with addiction.
Wendy, I understand that Rage Against Addiction is doing something very important, a monthly donor program. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. We are hoping to get our supporters to join us in providing a monthly donation. It can be $5 or it can be more. Whatever you can afford really allows us to help plan and increase our fundraising efforts.
Well, why should people become a monthly donor? What are they doing to help?
Their monthly contributions let us plan for long-term projects and respond quickly when urgent needs arise. And I'll give you an example. We had the need for a new mattress.
Right.
And we've also had urgent needs for refrigerators and washing machines and all of that kind of stuff that comes up. So they tend to need to be replaced, and our women deserve to have the things that they need.
So with the monthly donor program, technically anybody can do it for any amount, and because Rage Against Addiction always needs something. And
Yes.
I've known you for years now, and there's times you've told me you guys needed furniture, you need clothes, and also you're not getting the grants that you used to or the contributions that you used to. So this monthly donor program would definitely help a lot.
Yes.
So somebody becomes a monthly donor. Is there anything that they're getting in return? Besides, of course, helping those that need it. I know you guys have an excellent newsletter. Would they automatically be subscribed to
we'll
that?
subscribe you to our newsletter so you'll know what's going on. You can kind of track our progress, hear success stories, know the data and like how many women we serve each year, and just be a part of something bigger.
So with this too, I guess they're also going to be, because of the newsletter, they're going to be one of the first ones to find out about events coming up like the Memory Walk and Run, the Basket Bingo, and any other future events that you're doing, the podcast that you do.
Yes.
So they're going to be tied in right away.
Yes.
All right. So how can they become a monthly donor?
You can go to our website, and that is rageagainstaddiction.org, and go to our donate button. And on there, you will have the option to become a monthly donor, and you can put in any amount that you want. Your commitment, big or small, empowers our mission and changes lives every single day. Visit us at rageagainstaddiction.org to become a reoccurring donor and join us in making a lasting impact. Thank you for your compassion, generosity, and belief in a brighter future. Together, we can make a difference. Join us today.